Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Sedgwick County Board of Commission meeting. Welcome to those joining online, Facebook, and YouTube, and everyone joining us in person. We're glad you're here today. When you walk in, we always encourage you to grab a meeting agenda, a packet that allows you to follow along with all the items we're discussing on the County Commission agenda today. If you're ever curious about supporting documents, you have access. You can go to www.sedgwickcounty.org. Now let's get to work. We got a great meeting ahead of us, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for February 18th, 2026. Madam Clerk, first item.
Invocation to be led by Bob Beckler, Central Community Church. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful day. And Lord, on this special Wednesday that we call Ash Wednesday, we prepare our hearts for that joyous day that's coming. But Father, while you have placed us on this earth, there is much work to do. I thank you for these commissioners. I pray for them. I pray for their families. I pray, Lord, bless their marriages. I pray, Lord God, that you would protect their families. I pray, Lord God, that you would give them wisdom to know what is the right thing to do. And Father, I thank you for this great community. I thank you for this city of Wichita and this Sedgwick County. And I just ask, Lord, your continued blessing upon us. For the work that is done today, may it bring glory to your name. And it's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeff, can I say something about Pastor Bob?
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Pastor Bob, thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Give all our rest to those Central Community. Pastor Bob's only blemish is that he's a Nebraska Cornhusker fan, and that's it. But he's a great man, leads a great congregation, doing great things. So God bless you, sir. We appreciate you.
Next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Meitzner.
Present.
Commissioner Beatty.
Present.
Commissioner Howell.
Present.
Commissioner Wise. Present. Chairman Bubaugh.
Present.
County announcements.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Nicole Gibbs of Strategic Communications. I have Deputy Director Cody Sharvett here from Emergency Management. He's here to talk today about the 2026 Severe Weather Safety Program that kicks off on Monday. Sir?
Morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Cody Sharvett, Deputy Director, Emergency Management. As Nicole said, just want to speak real briefly and let folks know, as we've all noticed, the temperatures are warming, winter's winding down, but of course that means severe weather here in Kansas is just around the corner. So for personally the 18th year, I'm about to start teaching these classes. Overall for our department, it's probably closer to 30 or 40 years that we've been doing this. Some folks call these storm spotter classes, but we don't want folks to think you have to be a storm chaser to come out to these. These are for the general public. Whether you're a seasoned weather veteran or new to the state of Kansas, you're going to find some great information there. And they do start next week. Our first class is Monday, February 23rd in Valley Center. Followed 2 nights later, or exactly 1 week from tonight, our main weather presentation for the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County will actually be in Mays this year at their outstanding Performing Arts Center. That will be on Wednesday, February 25th. And since apparently we have half the population of Garden Plain here today, I will point out that the combined class for Garden Plain and Goddard will be Wednesday, March 11th at the Goddard City Building. So if folks need to find our schedule, it's on the sedgwickcounty.org website and the Emergency Management webpage. And there's certainly lots of good information that you'll glean from this, whether you've been to one before or not. So that's all I have, but I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Any questions, Commissioners?
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cody, for being here. Just a couple quick reminders. We have the last call for the Sedgwick County elections I voted and future voter sticker contest entries. Artwork must be submitted by Friday, February 27th at 5 p.m. We encourage kids in your life to enter for a chance to have their designs seen, worn by thousands of people. Also, the last day, the last day to request an application for an advance by mail ballot for the City of Wichita special election is Tuesday, February 24th. Early in-person voting for satellite locations starts next week on Thursday, 26th. And that's all I have for today. I'll stand for any questions.
Any questions, Commissioners? All right. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you.
next item.
Public agenda.
Public agenda. It looks like we have 11 people signed up on the public agenda. I'm going to ask everybody if you could please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And please, I think the majority of these speakers are going to speak about the data centers. We've been getting your emails. They're very respectful. We appreciate everybody being respectful with this process. And we just ask the same. Try not to repeat what another speaker has said. Please try to bring new information when you come up to speak. And I do want to ask, can we kind of go through where we're at right now with the data center? I don't even believe we can accept an application right now. Justin, could you clarify where we're at?
Certainly, Chairman. Be happy to. Justin Wagoner, County Councilor. The Board of County Commissioners approved an interim development control resolution in January that put essentially a 90-day pause on the ability for Sedgwick County and the unincorporated areas to consider applications for data centers. So if an application was submitted, it would not be processed at this time because again, there's an interim development control. That's a measure that's allowed by case law from the United States Supreme Court, Kansas Supreme Court, and that is in place. And currently staff is reviewing our zoning code and looking into working with a consultant that the county has retained on this matter to come up with potentially new regulations on that. That remains to be seen. But between now and I believe it's, if I remember correctly, April 16th is the last date of that. If an application comes in, it would not be processed because of that resolution that's in place right now.
Okay. Commissioners, do you guys have any questions about where we're at? Okay. If not, I'll go ahead and call up the first speaker. Please state your name and address for the record. Craig Lubers. Morning, Craig.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Commissioners, for the time to speak today. My name is Craig Lubers, a resident of the Garden Plain area in western Sedgwick County. My topic is regarding the hyperscale data center activity in the Garden Plain and broader Renwick area. I could speak today of this group's many concerns associated with these data centers, namely water, power, and other resource issues, but rather I want to speak on lesser known facts regarding where we are as a community and where we are going. I believe it's important to articulate ourselves by expressing it using facts and statistics, rather than hyperbole and emotion. The most appropriate way to do this, in my mind, is to use the best proxy for understanding the socioeconomic health of a community, this being their local school network and enrollment. These upcoming data points are not intended to be inflammatory, but simply educational for reference points to articulate our situation versus others. This data is publicly available and has been published by the Wichita Eagle in its October 2025 enrollment report. First, Wichita Public Schools are down 12% in its enrollment in the last 10 years. And unfortunately, Burton, Cheney, Clearwater, Conway Springs, Halstead, Haven, Kingman Norwich District, and Mulvane, all of them have lost enrollment as well, sadly at an average of a 17% down over this past 10-year period. There are certainly schools with growth: Andover, Circle, Derby, Goddard, Mays, and Valley Center, but the highest of all these averages around a 1% annual enrollment increase over that 10-year period. What's the point? What's my takeaway? Well, over half of all of these school districts, we are seeing moderate enrollment declines over an extended period, matching what we see across the state and the country at large, not just the Sedgwick County issue. Second, even the ones growing, the highest growth rate being a 1% average increase per year. Why does this matter? I want to compare these statistics to what we know in our area. Most importantly, looking at the schools closest to these proposed Renwick data center sites being pursued. Starting with the companies pushing the Garden Plain site, the closest school to this hyperscale data center project is St. Joe Oast, a K-8 school located barely 2 miles from the site and with many families that live and will live someday directly around the proposed area. St. Joe has seen 33% enrollment increase in the last 4 years alone. How about the Colwich site? The Colwich school enrollment is also up substantially, up 20%, but there's no need to go back 10 years or even 4 years. That is only in the last 2 years. And that also does not include the independent liberal arts school that was started in the town 4 years ago that has already outgrown its current infrastructure. And I have not mentioned Garden Plain and Andale, both growing at rates twice that as fast as those other districts that had seen growth. My overarching point is that these schools are growing at rates not seen anywhere else. And if the school is growing that way, so is the community. The data center does not get us back on track. It takes us off track. That is a major and key component that I believe should be understood and reconciled for this area. These schools do not need a possibly highly subsidized property tax pass from trillion-dollar companies, which in turn cannibalizes the economic trajectory that we are on right now. Sorry, I have one last point, Commissioners, if I can. My final point and request is to look at the following components and the recipe that is brewing. Number one, these large companies using possibly aggressive stealth tactics against unknowing communities, combined with two, some of the fastest growing communities in the county and possibly beyond that, with three, an application pause ending in less than 60 days while a neighboring county, state, and other areas across the country have multi-year moratorium periods, with four, unknown long-term impacts of data centers on similar communities in our country. My fear after looking at these last 2 weeks and extrapolating this forward is that these factors I mentioned create an unhealthy and possibly volatile situation for all parties over these coming weeks and beyond, with so many factors still unknown. We truly and greatly appreciate what you as the commissioners have done to educate not only yourselves, but the county itself on this topic. We ask, with what we know about, as shown above, combined with what we do not know about these data center impacts, is that you please strongly consider a multi-year moratorium extension to help dissipate this growing contention and give all parties time to resolve and learn more. Again, thank you very much for the time to speak today, and we appreciate your efforts to try to help make the best policy decisions for us and the county overall. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Craig. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Justin, I think we do want to clarify that the resolution is through April 17th.
Yes, Chairman, I apologize for that. I was off by 1 day. It's actually through April 17th.
Okay, that's great. Okay, thank you. Next speaker is Bert Eck.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Bart Eck, and I live at 30420 West 29th in Garden Plain also. I'm going to try to find a way to shave 2 minutes off of this. First, again, I want to thank the Commissioners for their due diligence thus far and their recognition of the need for a current moratorium. I've read through the Planning Department's published white paper on the topic of zoning regulations, and I really believe that the department has a clear understanding of the challenges and complexities of zoning these facilities. I personally have worked in and around the construction of both edge computing and primarily hyperscale data centers for the last decade of my career. Through that experience, I just want to make one observation on the white paper related to zoning, and I'll keep that brief. The white paper detailed examples of communities allowing either by right or conditional use permits. In my experience, there are far too many differences in the design and use, especially with the introduction of new combination generation and data center sites, to ever create enough proper zoning definitions and restrictions to allow by right permitting. So I just would ask the Commissioners to consider that. Each facility should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis where proper environmental, utility, and economic guarantees can be established with associated damages and penalties applied for failure to meet said standards. I just also want to say a few words about the general environment we're in nationally with the rapid explosion of data center construction, a lot of which I've seen and been a part of firsthand. The methods surrounding the rumored development desired near my community in Garden Plain is just a microcosm of a larger national trend, and partly why there's so many people in this room present to express their frustrations. These utilities and tech giants, they operate through non-disclosure agreements for a reason. It's not due to some trade secret or unique design in their building or systems, as they would like you to believe. It is to try to push the rezoning and permitting process through underhandedly because they know their facilities cannot meet their economic promises, and when the general public and local governments are educated on the matter, they lose leverage. I would ask the county and the Commissioners to use their leverage. AI-era scaling and competition for mega sites, grid access, and permits provide our community this leverage. Our government should treat data centers not as isolated real estate transactions, but as ecosystem-shaping moments that trade infrastructure access for commitments to advance local innovation and workforce pipelines aligned with key local industries. Guarantees to be water positive with commitments to local governments that restore more water than the campus uses. Investment commitments into new local small business startups or direct payments to local communities for high priority projects. If the data center industry brings as much to local economies as they say they do, and there's plenty of growing evidence across the country that says they do not, we should ask them to put their money where their mouth is with clear, measurable deliverables, ones that come with, and I mentioned before, and I cannot stress this enough, damages and penalties. For instance, if a data center, well,
I'll go and finish your thought.
For instance, For data centers that come with accompanying generation facilities, such as the one proposed in my community of Garden Plain, there should be a guarantee that the facility have a net zero consumer interaction with the grid, and damages or fines should be established for a facility falling short. If they cannot guarantee net zero, they should be required to guarantee that any future rate case increases approved by KCC for Sedgwick County for the next, let's say, 15 years shall be paid by the developer. Again, if they're as confident in their deliverables as their sales pitches would lead us to believe, they should have no problem with this. And we certainly, as Craig mentioned, should not be incentivizing these multi-trillion-dollar companies with tax abatements in a time when the market has afforded local governments the upper hand at the negotiating table. And most importantly, they should engage openly, not behind closed doors, with the community, with the public, to establish these community benefit programs. I'm out of time, but again, I want to thank the commissioners for letting us speak. And I would also reemphasize that if the 90-day moratorium isn't enough time to put a comprehensive plan in place that addresses all these concerns, again, I would just ask for an extension of that moratorium like Craig did. Thank you.
Thanks, Bart. Does anybody got any questions?
Okay.
Quick, Commissioner,
Barb,
stand for a question.
thank you for your email and all of the expertise that you offered whenever you sent in. I think it went to all of the commissioners. I wanted to just clarify the moratorium, and I know you understand this, the 90 days, if we don't feel comfortable with it, I've got a whole list of cons here that are going to have to be answered before I can get comfortable, and I know I probably speak for some of my colleagues as well. But by doing this and going through and not doing a multi-year moratorium, we're actually putting answers to whether we're going to accept a use or not. So these data centers are either going to continue to swarm and be around us or not, because we're putting in policy that's either going to deflect or attract, right? So by not drawing it out, we're answering for the landowners that want to sell and are willing to sell on what they can do with their property, but we're also telling those data centers what they can expect in Sedgwick County. So I appreciate all of your input. Just wanted to add that in because I felt that you understood that a lot whenever you sent your email to us. So thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jennifer Bugner.
Good morning. I am not a public speaker, so just bear with me here, please. So my name is Jennifer Bugner. I live at 29310 West 29th Street North, Andale, Kansas. If I lived on the other side of the dirt road, it would be Garden Plain address. We live directly across the road from where they're going to put the AI data center. Okay. We just learned about this 3 weeks ago. Non-transparency, we don't know anything, right? So to find out this is going to happen, why Garden Plain hasn't showed up is because we didn't know. So we're here now, and we're telling you, please help us. Please consider all the options that are there for us in this county. This has been the largest land grab with AI data centers in the history of the United States. They're not making any more land. They're not making any more water. We have to take care of Sedgwick County and the people that live here. I invite all of you to come out to our house. I will gladly show you where everything is. You've got to come out and see how beautiful it is. But also, we have farms. We raise food. We have cattle. We have the largest, I wouldn't say the largest, but 5 of the most amazing communities that they're thriving. Like everybody is growing, our schools are growing, our families are growing. Putting it out here in the middle of Western Sedgwick County would be a huge mistake. So I'm sure there are other options for this, so we just wish that you would look at that for us. The non-transparency for us has been a huge ethical discussion. So if it's such a great thing, why aren't they being transparent? Why can't you just tell us what you're doing, what you're planning? There's a huge issue there. As technology changes, it changes rapidly in this industry. Right, so in 2 to 3 years, this is going to be completely different. China is putting their AI data centers under the ocean. Finland is putting them under the ground, and they're using that thermal nuclear heat for families, for homes. So there are lots of options and lots of things that are happening in the world. I just ask that we take time to breathe and do what's best for us in our county and be on the offensive instead of the defensive, because really the ball is in our court. And we can write the terms, we can decide what's best for us. And I'm just asking that we take that time to pause that. And I just want to thank all of the people that came today because, we are concerned. And we are people that we vote, we pay our taxes, we love God, we love our country, and we love our neighbors. So please think about us in all of this, okay? And I'm honestly asking for no data center in Sedgwick County, but that's just that, okay? So, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Commissioner Beatty?
Yeah,
We stand for a question, please?
Not a question as much. You're fine. Not a question as much as a comment, because I think we've emailed a few times back and forth, and we appreciate all the emails and the feedback and the insight. It really is appreciative. It helps us understand the level of interest. I wanted to quickly just address the transparency piece of this, so everybody understands exactly the order of events, how this works. I sat in this seat for the last 2 years in the chairman's seat, and about 45 days ago, the development group that is looking at the site near Garden Plain reached out to myself and manager Tom Stoltz to introduce themselves and let them know that they were going to put in an application and wanted to know the process, and it was a precursory meeting.
Right.
That happened after the agreements were made with landowners. I know that was a part of conversations that took place. They entered into private transactions with landowners that the county, they didn't ask the county for permission. The county's not taking land by eminent domain. We're not out seeking data centers. We're not using county land for data centers. These are private transactions between a private company and private landowners. And we are notified after those transactions have been completed or contingency offers have been placed, which is why we entered into the interim developmental control, because we realized very, very quickly that we didn't have policy built for this type of use. So I just wanted to be very clear that we learned, I was the first of this commission to learn, because I was the chairman about 45 days ago, about the potential site out by Garden City. So this wasn't something that was brewing. They didn't come to us and say, hey, we're asking for permission. They had entered into agreements and then came to us for the land use zoning piece of this. So I just wanted to be very clear that we were learning on the fly too, which is the impetus for the interim developmental control, so we can build some policy around it. So I just think it's very, very important to realize that government, typically local government's not the first step. Many times we're a step along that supply chain in the conversation. The second piece, and again, it's not a question, it's more a comment. The data center conversation in the state of Kansas was from Senate Bill 98 that was passed by the state legislature last year. They provide a sales tax exemption, which is a very, very lucrative incentive based on these $500 million to $1 billion projects where they're replacing materials in those data centers frequently. We're learning that's a very lucrative tax incentive. So the incentive comes from state government, county government. The options that we have here are property tax abatements, and these are conversations that we have here at the county commission level. It's not something we do very frequently here, but I wanted to be very, very clear that the tax incentives are coming from the state, not from local government in these instances. So just the transparency is a big part for what we do here, very, very important for what we do here. We want to make sure everybody understands the process, and we're learning as you're learning too. So,
can I make a quick comment? Okay, so we're not against people selling their land. That's their land.
Sure.
That is their right, and they paid for it. But there has to be a little bit of social responsibility in that. And who knows what they were told? We heard that one person said they were going to build a 10,000 square foot facility. We're not talking a 10,000 square foot facility. We're talking 8 to 10 buildings the size of a super Walmart and a battery storage facility. I don't know, would you guys want that across from your house? I mean, it's the whole community, right? So to that point, we're not against these people, but I mean, somebody comes to you and offers you $8-10 million for your land. Times are hard. I understand that, but there does have to be that level of social responsibility for your people too and your neighbors.
Appreciate you very much.
And we thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Next speaker, Audra Baker. Good morning.
Good morning. Audra Baker, 654 North 279th Street West, and that's in Garden Plain. I am here for our community. We are looking to build our community. We're always looking to build our community. And it is very important to look out after our neighbors and to follow what's best. And a lot of us are thinking not in our backyard, but we live in a community where I live in the middle of nowhere because I like the sound of peace. I like the sound of quiet. I like the sound of, watching the cows graze. And when we're talking about the pollution in our water, the pollution of putting a AI data center next to where our water supply for Wichita comes into the city from Cheney Lake to Wichita, that's a big concern. Most of us drive nice vehicles, not nice vehicles on really bad roads, and we're okay with that. That's the decision we make when we live out by ourselves in the county, and we don't like anything coming up, anything that's different. We don't like change. Like, that's why we live in the country. We choose the quietness instead of the city and the hustle and the bustle. And we're here for support for our children. I live on a 7-acre plot, and my grandfather recently passed, but he has 90 acres around me. And we've been trying to buy that we've been out there for 21 years. We've been trying to buy this piece of land for 21 years, and now we have the opportunity to buy this land. And do we say, yes, we buy this with the possible potential of this being like where we were going to have our family compound? And do we buy this piece of land now because we're going to have an AI data center like Google next door to us, and we don't choose that. We choose to be off by ourselves, that we don't need the inner city bustle. And I wasn't planning on speaking, so I'm very sorry. But so this just comes from my heart of how we feel. And yes, landowners have the right to sell their land, but how many of us knew their land was for sale? We didn't know their land was for sale. Would somebody else have came in and bought it? Absolutely. Probably somebody would have. We've vetoed truck stops. We've vetoed Walmarts. We've vetoed so many things in Garden Plain because we like our community. Our community is where it is because we like our neighbors. We stick together. We all have the same focus and the same plan. So, thank you.
Any questions, commissioners? All right. Justin, if you don't mind, could we still kind of go ahead and clarify? I know we use the moratorium resolution. Can you kind of go through the interim development control and explain to us exactly what that legislative process is?
Certainly be happy to do so, Chairman. And I know this is, it's a similar discussion that we've had before a couple years ago with solar. We went through, at that point, we had a resolution establishing essentially a moratorium in that case. The resolution for interim development control in this case, as I mentioned before, allows for study and analysis by the planning department and ultimately by the Board of County Commissioners as to zoning code provisions on these uses. But none of this is dealing with any specific potential future application. That's one of the things to keep in mind. This is a legislative process. You'll probably hear us say that multiple times when this is discussed. If, for example, in the future there are code provisions that are adopted by this board at whatever time that could occur, if at that point there are code provisions in place and an application comes in, there will be a public hearing that's required under state law at the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. There would also, you guys as Board of County Commissioners customarily hold public hearings on these as well. So that in and of itself would be a quasi-judicial planning and zoning land use decision that would be in front of you if it gets to that point. So I think it's just for the awareness of the public, there will be certainly other opportunities, both while the legislative decisions being discussed and also if and when there are any future applications, it would be considered that those will also go through a very transparent public process.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions? Okay. We'll go on to the next speaker, Brandy Eck.
That was a mistake.
Okay.
Just didn't know what everybody said.
Okay. How about Daryl Bugner?
I'm Daryl Bugner. My address is 29310 West 29th Street North, Andale, right across the road from where this is proposed. My wife spoke earlier, and this is my grandson. He's supposedly going to be the 7th generation person to take over our farm. It's been there since 1900. And I'm up here just basically to plead the same thing a lot of these people had said. We live in a small rural community. I look out here and see a lot of farmers that's been there forever. And then I look and see a lot of my neighbors that came out and just recently built houses, some of them completed in the last year. they didn't come out there thinking they could build next to a data center. And I don't think any of you guys live next to a data center. Matter of fact, I know you don't. But there is ground out there if you want to come out here and build right next to it. As a matter of fact, there's a house across the road from it that's for sale that probably is going to have a hard time selling now. It's a small, quiet community, like everybody said. We all out there have private wells. We all drink out of the same puddle. And if that gets contaminated, what do we do then? And the noise issues and pollution issues, I'm sure you all are aware of those. I know I emailed all of you, and I got responses from a couple of you that were personal, kind of, and I appreciate that. Being out there is just, everybody, like I said, that moved out there for a reason. If we wanted to live in an industrial area, we would have built somewhere close to an industrial area. But that's about all I have to say. Any questions?
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Your beautiful grandbaby. Next speaker, Scott Ayers.
Good morning. Chairman Blueball and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to submit a few comments on data centers today. My name is Scott Ayers. I'm the CEO of Sedgwick County Electric, an electric utility located at 1355 South 383rd Street in Cheney, Kansas. Today, I just wanted to let the commission know and our members just a little bit about us, just to be informative for the community. Sedgwick County Electric has a 9-member board of directors guiding our nonprofit member-owned cooperatives. We have focused on this for over 88 years, meeting members' needs rather than maximizing profits. We serve parts of 5 counties: Sedgwick, Kingman, Reno, Harvey, and Sumner County. We have over 1,200 miles of electric lines. Our generating and transmission provider is KEPCO, the Kansas Electric Power Cooperative, located in Topeka, Kansas, whom I sit on the board of directors and whom we own. I applaud the commissioners for putting a 90-day pause on data centers to learn more about them, but I felt compelled to speak today to address concerns of our members and the residents of Sedgwick County. I've heard a lot about water consumption. We were just notified not less than 30 days ago about this data center as well. The data centers we've been in contact with, they're using a closed-loop recycled water system and an air system using very little water. A little bit about air pollution. The electric capacity for the load would be provided by Sedgwick County Electric through KEPCO and our G&T. Not typically generators. We can handle the demand. There will not be a grid strain. Sedgwick County Electric has an obligation to serve. So we don't get the luxury of saying, we don't want to serve it, we can't serve it. We have an obligation with Kansas Corporation Commission. So I'm up here probably the least liked person in the room today, but I just wanted everybody to know why I'm here. Energy costs. I know that is important for our members, but they're rising for everyone, and this is due to inflation, not data centers. We haven't had a rate increase in over 10 years. The good thing about data center siting in our territory, it allows Sedgwick County Electric to receive additional revenues to offset rising costs, delaying rate increases. If a data center is located in another surrounding area and not within our service area, it can contribute to some higher prices. I'm gonna say this is just like the casino that ended up down in Sumner County last time. It moved down there and with no benefit to Sedgwick County, but you drive down there and all you see is Sedgwick County tags. It's been difficult keeping rates low for our members in our area due to the regulations on the solar and the battery storage within Sedgwick County. It's also difficult to understand what it takes to keep a high voltage grid online. to be affordable, reliable, resilient, and secure. I've worked at Sedgwick County Electric for 36 years as an engineer and CEO. Sedgwick County Electric does the right things for the right reasons. Thank you again for the opportunity to share our concerns on data centers, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to contact us.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Beatty?
Scott, thanks for coming up and stating from Sedgwick County Electric Co-op. I live in rural Sedgwick County. I'm a customer of yours, so and you guys do a really wonderful job. I want to be really clear. There's not an application in at this point in time. There are rumored sites, proposed sites, but some of these sites are not served by Evergy. They'll be served by the co-op. Did I hear you say that you don't anticipate a rate increase because more consumption, more use of the electric grid from a data center? You don't see that as pushing through a rate increase to your users?
Not if it's within our service territory. There's other investor owns, and they have different values than we do. Anything we make through our cooperative at the end of the year, they're allocated back to our members in capital credits. So I don't have to make $1 million. I just have to make ends meet. And sometimes that's tough. You heard some of the other people here say, we've lost members. Some of the farm community has left, moved to town. You lose kilowatt hours. Here we have a chance to get kilowatt hours back, and I understand completely, the different. Some people could have a different life.
Yeah. One question. Evergy, a program that they have, there's going to be numerous data centers coming throughout Kansas, and Evergy has indicated that they have put into a policy called a large load tariff. So it's a premium with 15-year contracts that guarantee 15 years of use. Is that something that the co-op, would they enter into similar agreements, a large load tariff agreement with premiums that they have to pay that would guarantee 10, 15 years of use so that there's some stability?
Yes. If we're going to build this type of infrastructure, you've got to have guarantees, just as the county's probably going to want their guarantees on economic development, jobs, everything such as that. And a lot of people think, the rate may be a little bit different than my rate on my farm. You're looking at a $200 electric bill versus a different size electric bill. You're selling more kilowatt hours in one spot.
Okay. Scott, thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott? All right. Thanks a lot for coming.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Kevin Noblet.
Good morning. Kevin Noblet with Kansas Electric Power Cooperative out of Topeka. We serve 17 distribution cooperatives over 75 counties in pretty much the eastern half of the state of Kansas. And our primary responsibility is power supply. So we're responsible for getting the power to Scott and his team so they can deliver it to their members. I've had the opportunity to meet with multiple data center developers. I've had the opportunity to meet with hyperscalers. And I'm not here to tell you that a data center is the be-all, end-all. I'm not here to tell you that they are the right thing for your county. But I am here to try to bring a balanced approach, because there are certainly benefits that will come from a data center. I've read Facebook posts, I've seen editorials, I've been to other counties, and it's very, very similar. And there's a lot of information out there. I'm not going to say it's not accurate, but I'll also say it may not be 100% facts, because data centers are all different. The more reputable ones, the first gentleman that spoke about getting guarantees, whether you're talking about power supply, you're talking about water, you're talking about sound, those things need to be vetted. If and when a data center would apply in this county, I will tell you there should be time, and you should vet those things. And if you do not get the answers that you're satisfied with, you should not accept the application. But I would also say that today is not the day to put up the "we are not open for business" sign, wait for the day to come, deal with them on an individual basis. I understand probably the fear of the uncertainty. I get that. It's probably just a little too early. If one becomes real, I think there will be ample time for you to get your questions answered to your satisfaction so that you can make the proper decision based off of the benefits as well as some of the risk associated with it. I will also say, Mr. Beatty, you asked about it. We would not have a tariff, but we would have a special contract that would be very similar to, like Scott said, that would have all those protections from power supply, recovery of costs, and things like that. And yes, it would be typically long-term, 15 years, it could be 20. And again, we're not to that point yet, but a lot of the discussions, there's just a lot of talk going on. And it's not just in your county, by the way. I was in Marion County last week. There's chatter all over the state of Kansas. And again, understand your guys' concerns, and they're valid. I get it. So I'll answer your questions.
Okay. Commissioner Beatty?
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate your comments and some clarity on some things. Can you help us understand the impact of data centers on the entire Southwest power pool and the grid? I think we're looking at 17 total states. How does one data center compare? And what's happening in other states, how does it impact Sedgwick County and users here in Sedgwick County?
I'm not sure if I can give you a good answer, but I'll tell you, so Southwest Power Pool is made up of multiple states, from up North Dakota all the way down into parts of Texas, Louisiana, and actually a little bit in New Mexico, kind of up to and we are all part of the same power grid. When we, KEPCO, would produce megawatts, we sell it to SPP, we buy it back from SPP. Anytime any type of economic development goes into place, a data center, a manufacturing plant, that is causing more demand on the system. That is a fact. And so as you put more demand on the system, a data center or multiple data centers, most likely across the entire SPP footprint, you are going to increase the demand, which is awfully going to cause prices to increase. That's just a fact. But again, whether it's a data center or a car manufacturing plant or something else, you're going to get the same impact. What Scott talked about is the location really matters. The impact on the power grid and the prices, whether the data center's in Oklahoma, whether it's in a neighboring county, whether it's in Nebraska, it's going to have the same impact on the power grid. It's going to have the same impact on the power prices that everybody's going to be paying, me included. If you get it located in your service territory, in Scott's territory, then there will be revenues coming in. And those revenues will not only help Scott pay some of the bills, but it will also help offset some of those. So that is a benefit. I'm not saying it's enough of a benefit that you're going to want one in your county, but it is something that you certainly need to consider.
Okay, that is helpful. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Meissner?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Is it pronounced Noblet?
It's Noblet, long O.
How do you spell that?
Just like no, N-O-B-L-E-T.
Okay. Hey, I've also heard, is there, of course, some of the information and, documented or not, is these are so new that they could be change ownership, things like that over the course of this 15, 20-year. So I've also understood that sometimes the guarantee is secondary collateralized as well for the performance or the guarantee of your money. Or I'm not sure what that means, if they have massive deposits or secure it with other assets.
I'm just saying they're not a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah.
And each one needs to be looked at by us or by Scott, whether it's here or somewhere else, needs to be looked at it. Sometimes they'll give parent guarantees. Sometimes they will prepay. Sometimes, again, we have not struck a deal with anybody. So I'm kind of telling you stuff that could happen because we don't have anything in place.
Okay.
Would they change hands? They could. And again, it kind of depends. There are certain hyperscalers that would be the familiar names, the Metas, the Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons. I think those are less likely to change hands, but there's no guarantee. But there's also going to be other data centers that are much smaller, and I think those would have probably a higher probability of potentially changing hands. But it's we'd have attorneys writing stuff up to make sure that we were protected whether they changed hands or not.
Okay, well, thank you for showing up and giving some more additional background, not only to us, but to everybody to help clear some of the confusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, Faith Martin. Morning, Faith.
Hello, District 5, Faith Martin. I am not here to talk about data centers. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Sedgwick Lofton Task Force and the recommendations. I was reviewing some of them this morning. Maybe 6 months ago we talked, and I got a copy of kind of where we were on that, but I would hope that we would maybe have a dashboard so that the community can review it, because right now it's just a really long PDF. And some have updates, some don't have updates. But basically like the 9/11 advisory board. Nothing really in there about where we are on that or what's going on, just that, we're thinking about doing that. Number 5, under foster care, no updates. Then later on, in the document, there's another one under WPD, and I imagine also Sedgwick County Sheriff, that refers back to that as being done. Those, neither one are done, and they refer to each other. The case that happened, you all are familiar with it. I don't need to rehash it, but corrections staff were found guilty of murdering a child in custody. That happened. Case is over. It's done. What I would like to see is, as we move forward through this, that we start talking about what next steps are, because this has been a very long process. The community and Sedgwick's brother and staff and have been working through this for a long time, and I'm not here to talk about the settlement or the money, even though that's an issue maybe for another day, because where does the settlement come from? Most likely taxpayer dollars. But I would like to see that the staff that were implicated in this be removed from corrections. If they are working in corrections, they are removed, if not fired completely, because they were found guilty in a civil trial of killing a 17-year-old child having a mental health crisis. I don't think I want them working with adults or children. I would like to see them terminated. I would also like to see the county get more aggressive on its legislative agenda when it comes to juvenile justice and stand your ground laws. I would also like to see the county put some pressure on another elected, the district attorney, Mark Bennett. If these officers were found guilty in a civil trial, then we should be able to, and their qualified immunity was stripped through the 10th Circuit, we should be able to bring them up on criminal charges. And so I would like to see, thank you, I would like to see this body put a little bit more pressure and use your political clout to put some pressure to bring these officers to justice, because a civil penalty is great. I think it just opens the door, but that's not enough. And I know we're in the middle and they're going to say you can't talk about it and yada yada, but I think the public needs to know that this is something that happened, and we still have recommendations that aren't implemented. We still have state law that hasn't been changed, and we still have officers that work for the county. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from Faith? And Justin, as she said, I do believe we still have ongoing litigation with that.
That's correct, Chairman.
Thanks. Next speaker, LaWanda DeShazer. Morning, LaWanda.
Good morning. LaWanda DeShazer, 2707 North Terrace. Beatty is my commissioner. Yes. So, just side note, it is amazing to see so many people out to talk about what goes on in their community. We are the voice, and this is our house, and keep up the good work. So, I'm here to talk about Sedgwick Lofton's case. 2 weeks ago, a verdict was reached in the Sedgwick Lofton civil case. I respectfully urge the county to honor the ruling of the court and the careful deliberation of the jurors in the Sedgwick Lofton case by refraining from filing an appeal. Allowing the verdict to stand would provide a measure of closure to the Lofton family and demonstrate respect for the judicial process. Additionally, to restore public trust and reinforce a commitment to the safety of our children who are in mental crisis, I call for the termination of the correctional officers whom the jury found liable in Cedric Lofton's case. Accountability is essential to ensuring that no other family endures a similar tragedy and that our community can have confidence in the system designed to protect its youth. So again, the civil courts found correctional officers liable for the death of a 17-year-old that was in a mental crisis. He ended up at JIAC, and respect the decision. Let's close out this case. Let's move forward, and let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Beatty?
Yeah, not a question, just a comment, more to Faith. There is a task force page that's still live. I'll send you the link. I'll shoot you an email for the link. But of the Lofton task force, there were 58 recommendations. 52 have been implemented. 3 are still in process, and this progress is still happening. And then 3 have not been implemented, most of it because it's out of our control, some of it's state's issues that we're working with the foster care system and such. But I will send you the link so we can get updated on where we're at on the Lofton task force. But all that is still live on the website. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. That's all of our public speakers. Anyone have any questions? If not, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file public agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell.
Aye.
Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Chairman Blubow.
Aye. Next item, please.
New business, item A, PUD 2025-00027, zone change request in the county from SF20 Single Family Residential District to PUD Planned Unit Development to create the Harry Crossings PUD number 154 for future residential and/or commercial development, generally located on the southeast corner of East Harry Street and South 143rd Street East.
Yeah. We'll wait a few seconds till the room clears. Morning, Scott.
Good morning.
Yep.
Okay. Yes, sir. Scott Wadle from the Planning Department. Let's see if I can get this to work. Here we go. So, the applicant here is requesting to rezone this property, which is outlined in the blue-green color, from SF20 to planned unit development, which is custom zoning. So this item is being heard today because it was deferred from last week's meeting. In addition, protests have been received against the application, and there were public comments received against the application at the MAPC public hearing. In terms of the request, the applicant has indicated they're requesting the zone change in order to position the property for future development, which the applicant has indicated may include commercial and/or residential mix. The applicant chose to pursue a PUD as opposed to a zone change to LC limited commercial, because it would require, it's a size over 6 acres, which would require then a community unit plan on top of the LC zoning district. They have the option then to do a PUD as an alternative to that. In terms of the property is located at the southeast corner of Harry and 143rd. It's made up of one ownership parcel. It's just over 26 acres in size. It's developed with a house, and the remainder of the land is in agricultural use. It is not platted. It is in the Wichita urban growth area and recommended for residential and employment mix in the comprehensive plan. In terms of context, properties to the north are in the city of Wichita, and you can see here on the graphic there's a pink line. It goes underneath the kind of aqua color one. That is the city limits for the city of Wichita. So anything kind of to the south generally is in unincorporated Sedgwick County, and to the north is in the city of Wichita. So the LC zone property to the north is approximately 1 acre in size and is undeveloped. The SF5 zone properties are a platted reserve with landscaping and a church, and further to the north are single-family homes. To the east are two properties. The northern one is in the city of Wichita and zoned SF5 and developed with a church. The southern one is in Sedgwick County, zoned SF20, owned by the church directly to the north and in use as a recreational field. Property to the south is in unincorporated Sedgwick County and zoned SF20 and developed with large lot residences. Property to the west are in the city of Wichita, zoned SF5 and LC, and are undeveloped. And properties to the northwest across the intersection are zoned SF5 and developed with single-family homes. The staff report provides information about development standards, screening and landscaping, signage, parking, and circulation. In addition, attached to the staff report is the text for the custom zoning district. So in terms of review, on December 18th, the Planning Commission held the public hearing for this item and recommended approval of the request, and that vote was 10-0 with 1 abstention. 6 members of the public spoke in opposition to the request. And in addition, prior to the MAPC public hearing, staff received written public comment in opposition to the application. Those comments have been attached to the staff report. Property owners submitted 37 protests against the application. Of those protests, 4 were in the protest area and constituted 2% of the protest area. This does not exceed the state statute threshold of 20%. Therefore, the vote change request can be approved by a simple majority or 3 of 5 votes. On February 11th, the Board of County Commissioners considered the PUD and deferred it for 1 week so that planning staff and the applicant could provide alternative PUD language with respect to screening to alleviate concerns about the negative impacts between the different land uses. The applicant submitted proposed language has been attached to the staff report. In addition, staff prepared a document with originally 4 options that has been updated to 5 options as of yesterday. And that updated version was distributed this morning, and there are some copies up at the table up by the entrance. In terms of action, it's recommended the County Commission adopt the findings of the Planning Commission, approve the zone change request, sign the resolution, and authorize it to be published. Again, that requires just 3 of 5 votes. Alternatives include the following. You can override the Planning Commission, make alternative findings, and deny the application. That would require 4 out of 5 votes because it's an override of the Planning Commission's action. Another alternative is that you can return the case to the Planning Commission for additional consideration with a statement specifying the basis for the failure to approve or deny. And as always, that would just take a simple majority or 3 of 5 votes. And again, with that, I can take you through the graphics and maps. So here's the site that's the proposed annexation site. Here's the zoning map, which was described earlier. Here's the map from the comprehensive plan showing the residential and employment mix as well as new residential recommended for the site. Urban growth areas map just showing the city limits for Wichita, as well as the urban area of influence. And again, Wichita does not have an urban area of influence because we have a shared planning commission between the county and the city. Here's the protest map. I'll spend a little bit of time on this to explain. The purple line is the notification area. The green line represents the actual protest area where the calculation is done. Protests that are received in that were added up and accounted for 2% of that total area. The blue properties outside of that protest area are protests that were submitted but were outside of the calculation area, so they were not counted. And again, the shape of this one is a little bit irregular, well, quite a bit irregular because it butts up against the city of Wichita city limits. So it extends 200 feet into the city, 1,000 feet in the unincorporated county. A graphic that was submitted with PUD application, and then photos of the site and the surrounding area. I'll go through those relatively quickly. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Okay. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
My light's not working.
Oh, Commissioner Meissner.
Okay. I'll respect any comments from Commissioner Hallis in his jurisdiction, but after seeing all of the stuff and all of the confusion that has been clarified, thank you. And I'd be glad to make a motion to just accept the MAPC recommendation unless there's reason otherwise. But I will pen the motion based on any other input.
Okay. And I'll second that motion. Have any questions or anything?
He does.
Commissioner Howell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the discussion last week was regarding potential screening on the east and the south of the subject property. I am a little bit more concerned about the area to the east because of the existing residential neighborhood. I know there's a church right there, but we had her testimony last week that that a lot of the kids from the neighborhood go to the west and play in that parking lot, and then out to the west even further. And there's other places around town where you see commercial developments near residential neighborhoods, and they're typically, many times, are separated by a solid wall. That's not unusual to see that. In fact, I think there's options in here that would have required a solid wall of 6 to 8 foot. That's not completely unusual. I am interested in number 5 here. And what it talks about is a solid screening wall with a height of 8 feet. It could be taller. I'm not trying to limit the height. I'm simply just limiting the minimum height as being 8 feet. Shall be required to prevent the passage of debris and light and to mitigate adverse visual impacts. I'll add on their security. The wall shall be constructed of brick, stone, masonry, architectural tile, or other similar material, not including wood or woven wire. So it's not a wire fence. It's not a wood fence. Screening wall shall be required along the east property line of the subject property site when subject site is developed with commercial land use and it's contiguous to residential zoning, in other words, the church. The length of the wall shall be from the street right-of-way to the furthest point south of the commercial land use. The wall shall be reduced to 3 feet in height for that portion of that lies between the side and front setback lines and the contiguous abutting public street. That's for safety, for so you can see over the wall or through the wall, around the wall when you're pulling out into traffic. This is, in my opinion, a reasonable compromise. It provides the screening that's required if and when this gets developed into commercial property. It protects the existing homes that were there, that built their homes, not realizing there might be a Walmart next door or a Dillon's or a Quick Trip or many other uses. I don't have all the uses in front of me, but there's a lot of things that could be. The area to the south is just not constructed currently. I'm less concerned about that because I believe that this land will be zoned, and whether it's constructed or not, the people who build any homes to the south have a reasonable knowledge that there's something that goes to the north of them. They can do whatever they choose to do. So I'm not that concerned about residential properties to the south. I'm only concerned primarily to the properties that are existing properties to the east. And this is a very reasonable compromise. And so again, if they build something that's 100 feet long or 200 feet long or 400 feet long, whatever it is on that east wall, or the east edge of their property, that would be the length of the wall that's required in 8 foot height. So it's not saying you can't get around the wall. It simply provides, if you will, a reasonable barrier so that it's not just open to the residential neighborhood. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I make a substitute motion. We take option 5.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We have a substitute motion. Do we have a second on the substitute?
I'll second the substitute.
Okay. We have a substitute motion. So we'll be voting on the substitute motion. Could you please repeat the motion again?
It is, in its entirety, you probably need to state the rest of the motion here is that we would adopt the findings of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and approve the zone change, sign the resolution, and authorize it to be published, with the exception of, we're going to add one condition, option 5, which is on the handout, and I've already read that for the record, but it basically is the option that says masonry wall when commercial use. And what this is a 8-foot solid wall that will be built whenever there's commercial properties developed in that subject area, And this, from the arterial there on Harry Street, as far back on that east edge as the commercial property is developed. So again, until they develop that, there's no wall requirement. It is an 8-foot wall if and when they develop that commercial property along that east edge of the subject property. That's my motion. Mr. Justin, is that acceptable?
Okay. Yep. Commissioner Beatty? Or Justin, go ahead.
And actually, I was going to look to Samantha Siang's been working on this the most, so I was going to ask if maybe if she's has a comfort level with that motion language, she prepared that. So.
And it would be option 2 on the suggested motions. Okay.
Samantha Siang, Assistant County Counselor. If I may, I'd ask you to reiterate that the motion is to override the MAPC recommendation, approve the zone change with modifications to the PUD text to have a heightened level of screening to mitigate the effects of any commercial uses that may occur on the subject property. You're moving to adopt the PUD text as written, except to amend paragraph 5E1 of the PUD text to require masonry wall along the east property line of the proposed PUD to the furthest point south of the subject site is developed with commercial use in its contiguous to residential zoning district.
She said that very well, and I would say that's my motion.
And just to be clear, Commissioner Howell, you're incorporating that into your motion, correct?
Yes.
And I would think it would be appropriate to ask Commissioner Wise if as the second, if you're comfortable with that as your second as well.
I'm comfortable.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that option 2 on our paperwork?
Sir, that would be option 5.
Okay,
so it's option 2 on the motions. She read approve the zone change with modified conditions to the PUD. That's option 2 on the it's in the book there. But the handout that shows 5 options regarding screening around the property.
I'll just clarify.
It was option 5 of those 5 options.
I'll just clarify. It's the attachment that is the planning staff's recommended language that has options 1 through 5, and that would be option 5 that's being that's what Commissioner Howell was recommending. In terms of what he's referring to the option 2, that's just the motion language that
can I interrupt you? Can somebody explain to me the difference between what MAPC recommended and what is being recommended in this motion? What is the difference?
Yes, sir. So in what the MAPC is recommending, it would allow the applicant to have the screening could be a wood fence. So it would be a 6 to 8 foot high wood fence. For the motion that's currently under consideration, the substitute motion, it would require an 8-foot masonry wall along the east boundary line of the subject site, extending to the furthest point south that there is a commercial use on the subject site.
And the MAPC recommendation takes the screening how far?
The MAPC motion, let me double check that real quick.
Which would be option 1 of the 30 options that we've had to consider here. While you're looking, I am very frustrated about how complicated this has become. This should not be this complicated. When we have property rights, we have MAPC recommendations. This really should not be as complicated as it's become.
Yeah, I want to make sure, actually, I want to make sure I've got the right text. We've gone through some. Here's the text. Okay, here we go. Okay, so for the screening, okay, it requires, currently what's recommended by the MAPC requires what the standard screening requirements are in the Unified Zoning Code. So anything that is not, and that is only for non-residential uses on the site, So it would allow the option of a 6 to 8 foot screening. It could be provided through vegetation. It could be a wooden fence. It could be a berm. So it provides multiple options. And in this case, the screening would only have to be provided for non-residential uses. Yes, and that would be the standard that they would have.
So essentially, we're screening from commercial uses to the residential pieces. It's the same. It's just what type of screening we're looking at?
Yes, I would say that that's the biggest difference. The other thing, too, is that the substitute motion is very specific in that the screening is only required along the east perimeter of the property, not on the south.
Okay. Thank you.
Would it be appropriate to ask the applicant's agent if they are comfortable with that, or am I convoluting and muddying the water?
I think it's fair to ask that, Commissioner.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to present to the Commission. Kim Edgington, PSC Consulting, agent for the applicant, for the record. We would prefer and respectfully request that you consider staff and MAPC's option number 1, given that staff and the MAPC considered this at length. It does still require screening for non-residential uses in the form of a 6 to 8 foot wood fence that is constructed and required to be maintained by the property owner. This would be in keeping with the standards of the Unified Zoning Code that are in place all over the city. Anything above and beyond that would be essentially entirely beyond what is typically required, and in fact can really be deemed to be arbitrary and capricious based on what the planning staff and MAPC have already determined to be appropriate and in this PUD to protect property that frankly is not even adjacent to this property. If we were having a conversation where these homes directly backed up to this property, it would be a very different conversation. We have a significant buffer of 400 feet. Along that property line, there is also a solid tree row of 10-foot or larger cedar evergreen trees. If the masonry wall was required to be built in that location, it is absolutely certain that those trees will be removed. So we've got and that is on our property. So the tree line is on our property. So our intent is to keep those trees, have a significant natural vegetative barrier along with the wood fencing that is required under option number 1 that was recommended by the Planning Commission unanimously.
Okay.
I would be glad to stand for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so just to clarify, the vote we have in front of us is for the substitute motion. It's basically making the masonry wall mandatory. Is that correct?
That is my understanding, Chairman. Looking at Madam Clerk, is that okay? She's confirming as well. Thank you.
Okay, and that takes 4 out of 5 votes to approve?
Yes, it would, Chairman.
Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner?
No.
Commissioner Beatty?
Nope.
Commissioner Howell?
Aye.
Commissioner Wise?
Aye.
Chairman Blubaugh?
No. So we'll vote on the original motion, which was to adopt the findings of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and approve the zone.
Commissioner Meitzner?
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty?
Aye.
Commissioner Howell?
No.
Commissioner Wise?
Aye.
Chairman Blubaugh?
Aye. And that motion passes 4 out of 5. Madam Clerk, please call the next.
Item B, presentation of the appraiser's annual report of real property value trends in Sedgwick County.
And the purpose of this report
is to convey to you some of the real estate activities that occurred in 2025 and how it impacts the 2026 appraised and assessed values in Sedgwick County. And I did bring along with me some of my experts in our office, Jack Mannion, Grant Schmidt, Maria Bornick, Drew Westerfield. Sorry about that. Miranda Paulus. I'm sorry about that. I'm a little nervous. I don't know why, but Tricia McDowell and Jackie Denny. Robert Prine was unable to make it today, but with all of my experts I have here, we have over 100 years worth of experience that helped come up with develop our values and actually assisted me with the report. And I appreciate all the time and effort they put in.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Reviewed for our 2026 valuation. And we update appraisals each year to ensure that all properties are valued at fair market value. This requires the inspection of thousands of sold properties, the recalibration of scores of valuation models, and the review of all parcel values. The appraiser's office. We have several primary duties that we do. The county appraiser ensures fairness and equity in the valuation of all property in Sedgwick County. We also determine fair market value for each property to support an equitable distribution of property tax burden. Applies a professional appraisal standards and statistical analysis to maintain accuracy and uniformity in the property assessments. The county appraiser does not set tax rates. These are established by local governing bodies such as cities, school districts, and other taxing entities. We do not collect taxes. This is the responsibility that belongs to the Sedgwick County Treasurer's Office. We do not determine tax amounts. Our focus is solely on establishing fair and accurate property values, not on tax revenue. Why did values change? The real estate market is one of the reasons that the values change. The market has continued to be positive in many areas and neighborhoods. We do re-inspections. Many changes have occurred to parcel data due to re-inspections. Data changes can come from other resources and field inspections such as requests by a property owner. Index indications prior year values are compared to sales prices in the neighborhoods. Building permits, new construction, remodeling, additions, decks, outbuildings, and demos, and other types of building permits we do inspect, and they could cause the value to change. And last, the sales. Recent sales or recent physical changes, the valuation approach and the use of property determines the assessment rate to apply to the appraised value to determine the assessed value. Parcel growth in Sedgwick County. Parcel growth occurs with large parcels are being subdivided into smaller parcels for development. There was an increase of over 2,800 parcels in 2026 from 2025, which was approximately 1.2% increase. I want to state that I stated earlier with some of the commissioners that we actually had 243,782 parcels. After further research and seeking clarification from our oversight agency in reference to our abstraction, it was determined that we have 239,031 parcels. That's what's on the screen. That's what we show. And the parcel growth was mainly due to platting new residential subdivisions for future development. We split out the parcel counts by class, and as you can see, residential class, adding with commercial industrial class, still make up the larger portion of the percentage, and it is at 83% of the total parcel count. Assessed value by class. Parcels in the residential class and commercial class make up 97% of the total assessed value. As you can see, I added on there, maybe a little hard to read, but I did add the total assessed value for all real property. And that total assessed value, when you add all the classes up with their assessed values, comes up to $7,683,738,636 for the tax year 2026. The residential sales count for 2025 increased slightly for land by 66 sales, with a larger increase of improved sales by 398. Even though the total residential sales count is down over 2,900 sales from 2021, sales appear to be steadily out, with the last 3 years of having an average of 10,966 sales per year. The residential median sales price. The residential median sales price has been increasing year over year. Last year, it was $247,500. This year, it is at $264,100, which is approximately 6.7%, with over 3% of other building permits issued. Some examples of other building permits are basement finishes, remodels, outbuildings such as detached garages or pole barns. The residential property valuation changes from 2025 to 2026 are as follows. 12% were decreased, and the value of typical change was a negative 3.2%. There was an increase, and 88% of the parcels increased, typical of 10.8%, with a no change value, with a typical overall change value of being 9.3%. We do understand this is extremely emotional. We've had some very steep increases just recently in the last several years, and we are trying to balance compliance, making sure that we're in compliance with industry standards of 90 to 110%, which means 10% below our values would match the sales price, either 10% below what the sales price was or 10%. We have a range between 10% below and 10% above. But yet at the same time, we're also taking into account that at the first, when COVID struck in 2019, really the market started to take off in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And we were extremely conservative those first several years when the market was taking off. And therefore, while the market is not what it was then, and it has definitely slowed down in reference to increasing, we are playing a little bit of catch up to make sure that we are up with the market and we are in compliance with industry standards. But we are aware it's a very emotional thing for most residential property homeowners. Now, hopefully we can get on to some maybe more positive news after that slide. So agricultural property valuation changes from 2025 to 2026. 53% of the parcels decrease in the value. A typical change was a negative 7.1%. 24% increase in value of the parcels with a typical change of 5.6%. 23% of the parcels had a no change in value, with the typical net change in value was 1.6%. The state values the ag land with a modified income approach using an 8-year moving average, but the county is responsible for making sure that we have identified the correct use. Residential land valuation changes. 61% of the parcels decreased in value, a typical change of negative 22%. 2% of the parcels increased with a value change of 15%, and 37% had a no change in value with an overall net change value of negative 8%. Total commercial sales. Commercial sales count for 2025 decreased slightly for land, down 21 sales, with a decrease for improved sales down 60 sales. Even though the total commercial sales count is down 405 sales from 2022, sales appear to be settling out with the average of the last 6 years of being 546 sales per year. New commercial building permits issued. There were 82 fewer new commercial building permits issued from 24 to 2025, and 39 fewer remodel and other building permits issued last year. The commercial property valuation changed from 25 to 26. 13% of the parcels 13% of the economic unit decrease in value of a typical change of negative 0.02, with 52% of the economic value increase in the value of typical change was 0.03, and 35% had a no change in value with a typical net change in value was 0.0014. And as you can see, the commercial properties have flattened out. Commercial land value changes from 2025 to 2026. There was 1% of the parcels decreased in value, a typical change of negative 44%. 62% had an increase in value. A typical change was 6%. 37% of the parcels had a no change in value, with an overall net change in value was 4%. I alluded to this slide a little bit earlier when I was talking about residential properties. As you can see, residential, when we compare residential property sales in 2025 and the January 1, 2025 values, our mid-year median ratio of appraised value to sales price was around 90.43%. When we compare the commercial property sales to our 2025 values, the ratios was setting at 70.28. This was only a mid-year ratio study. We have been conducting more sales review, including appeals on any questionable sales to the Property Valuation Department for the final ratio study. Typically, we have met the 90% of the sales ratio requirement during the final ratio study for residential and commercial properties. Occasionally, we are having to use the confidence interval to be in compliance. And also, typically, it's around April or May when we actually have a final ratio report for 2025. Personal property tax law change. Effective January 1, 2026, a number of the items were specifically exempt from the personal property taxation, including off-road vehicles not operating on highways, trailers weighing 15,000 pounds or less for personal use, watercraft trailers and motors, and other watercraft. The Personal Property Division of the Appraiser's Office has already indated assets to meet the January 1, 2026 qualifications. If we were unable to locate the weight of the trailer, for that item to be removed, the owner will have to provide the trailer information in a form of photos or written documentation to us so that we can correct that and remove them from the tax roll. Personal property tax law changes. The number of personal property items were not included in the January 1st changes and will remain on the assessment roll. The list, as you can see on the screen, also is available on our website or by contacting our appraiser's office. Due to personal property being sold, and the recent legislative changes in personal property accounts have drastically decreased from 34,184 in 2025 to 14,586 accounts in 2026. This is a 19,598 reduction in accounts, which is also a 57% reduction in accounts. Out of the 19,598 accounts removed, 914 accounts, which is 3%, were because the owner let us know that they no longer own those assets, and the accounts were removed from the tax roll. No, personal property is still working through their final review accounts, and these accounts may change slightly. They are due to finish final review through the end of April. This slide shows a reduction in personal property accounts due to the law change. As you can see, there is a significant reduction in accounts for personal property and watercraft due to the law change. The account reduction for personal property classification is 8,360. The assessed value reduction is 8,448,474. The watercraft reduction, the account reduction, is 10,324, with an assessed value reduction of 3,472,534, with a total reduction of accounts being 18,684. The assessed value reduction is 11,921,008. Give me a second here. So I did pull up this morning the assessment roll for personal property in 2025. And I just wanted to let you know, in 2025, there was $145,108,863 with assessed value. So if you look, the total reduction of value, assessed value, was 11,921,008. So what I wanted to bring to your attention was the fact that even though we lost a lot of accounts, the value wasn't in those accounts as much as the value that actually stayed on. Does that make sense? I was trying to clarify that. So, some key dates to remember. The real property effective date of appraisal is January 1. All real property valuation notices need to be mailed out by March 1st. We're actually going to be putting them in the mail because March 1st is on a Sunday, so they will be coming, they will be put in the mail on Friday or Saturday, so either the 27th or the 28th. Appeals will be held March through May in order to make adjustments to the real property values and finalize personal property valuations. Personal property valuation notices will be mailed out on May 1st, and they must be returned back by May 15th. On June 1st, we will certify the roll to the clerk. Then taxing authorities can determine their budgets and tax rates can be calculated. Real property appeals. If the property owner thinks that their value does not reflect market value or would like an explanation on how the value was determined, they can fill out the back of their value notice and complete it and return it back to the Sedgwick County Appraiser's office. And this request can be filed also online through SmartFile, the portal. Now, appeals must be filed within 30 days of the date indicated on the front of the notice. The date on the front of the notice will be March 1st. So that means it needs to be returned back to us if they want to do an appeal by March 31st. We will start real property appeal meetings on March 17th if we have requests at those times. What to provide at an appeal. These are helpful items to provide at an appeal. Evidence of value such as comparable sales data, recent fee appraisals, recent purchase contracts, actual construction cost. Also, we would like to know about the property condition and evidence such as photographs, repair estimates, inspection reports. And for commercial income properties, we would like to see 3 years of income and expense statements and the current rent roll. What to provide, a continuation of what to provide for appeals, the agricultural property, IRS Schedule F, records verifying production and sales, executed lease when production can be shown. I will let you know that some of our owners in Sedgwick County own the property, but they do not actually farm the property. That last executed lease will help identify that they have an agreement with someone to do the farming, such as potentially taking hay off of part of their property. So that would be beneficial. They don't have to be the farmer. They just have to show that someone is farming their property. Documentation can be submitted prior to the appeal via email, in person, or email. And as you can see below are our email addresses. And all submissions are voluntary. And also, you can find additional information by our website or contacting our office. Uniform and equal. Please remember that the county appraiser is required by law to appraise property in a uniform and equal manner and should not be considered an adversary. Increases or decreases in property values do not change the amount of tax dollars needed for local services. Shown above on the screen is the formula to determine property taxes and how the appraised value is used in that formula. For information and assistance, property owners or their representatives are welcome to call or stop by our office. Above is the location of our office and the phone number that they can call. Our website is also on the screen, and it is a good resource for researching information. If they need assistance in reference to how to navigate the website, if they call in, we will be happy to navigate them through our website. This concludes our report. I will be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Commissioner Beatty?
Deanna, thank you. This is your first report to the commission at a commission meeting since you've been our new county appraiser. And thank you for including all the team too. I think it is helpful to acknowledge that there's some really smart people that do this work, and including them in the process when you met with the commissioners, I felt was really, really helpful. So I just want to acknowledge that, and I appreciate the effort to do that. You ended there by saying if you have any questions. We do have some questions, but the public is going to have more questions when these tax value or property valuation notices go out this next week, or I guess March 1st is when they should be landing. So to sum it up, residential is likely going to see a median increase of 9.3%. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So we've had a nice little trajectory of increases in these valuations, as you mentioned, for a lot of reasons. I do want to bring some levity to 2 points. Number one, and thank you for getting me the information so quickly. In 2024, so just a couple years ago, there were 6,333 total residential real estate sales, so transactions. Of those 6,300, 5,739 were sold over the county valuation.
That's correct.
So 91% of all residential properties that were sold in 2024 sold above the county valuation.
Yes.
In 2025, I wanted to see if that number was dipping. There were 5,007, so less sales transactions. The market is cooling, but pricing hadn't cooled. In 2025, there were 5,007 total real estate sales for residential. 4,200 of them were sold over the county valuation, so nearly 85%.
Yes.
So there's two things can be true at once. Yes, valuations have increased for individuals with their residential properties, but pricing is what's driving that. The market has driven that. And I think that's really important, and that's validated by the sales transactions. Now, there are outliers out there, and I think we've talked at depth now that you're wanting to put some red flags in, that if there is an outlier, that it automatically triggers an audit from your department to look at these things. But the market has driven, the sales market has driven these county valuations to go up. So that's point number one. The second point is people are certainly frustrated at valuation increases, but they're not frustrated that their asset is appreciating, because that's a good thing for all of us. What they're frustrated is traditionally is that typically leads to property tax increases. And this is the point that I think is very valid and the public should hear. The valuations should have nothing to do with property tax increases. That is done at the local taxing jurisdiction level. When we build our budgets, that's what determines the level of property taxation, not the valuation. I would encourage the 110 or 15 or however many taxing jurisdictions we have in Sedgwick County to do exactly what I think we plan on doing here at the county level, and what we did the last 3 years, is when you see 9.3% available assessed value growth, not to grab it all and to advertise to the community we're keeping our mill levy rate flat. No, you're taking a 9.3% valuation increase and passing that on to the taxpayer. I would encourage them to do what we are likely going to do and not take all 9.3% and take what is needed, not what is available, and build your budget on what we need, not all that is available, and reduce the mill levy. I'm relatively certain, I know where my seat's going to be voting, but I feel like I know my colleagues pretty well. We're not grabbing 9.3% assessed value growth on residential. It will be significantly less than that, because we budget based on what we need, not what's available. I want to just encourage everyone else out there that's making decisions like we're going to be making to do the exact same thing, and to lead responsibly and respectfully to the property owners in Sedgwick County. So if this is a good report, we are going to get a lot of questions. You're going to get a lot of calls here in just a couple of weeks when these valuation notices land. But please, I hope the public to understand the valuations and the property tax bills are two separate deals, two separate processes, and we need to educate the public so they understand completely that the property tax piece is our discretion, not the appraiser's discretion. So thanks for the report. You did a good job.
Thank you.
Commissioner Howell. Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of questions. Thanks for the presentation. I want to look at slide 8 for just a moment, please. Maybe there's something on this slide I'm not understanding, but is this a assessed value that's based on the notifications that are going out in January the 1st of this year?
Yes.
So it shows the total assessed value is 7.683 billion.
Yes.
Well, last year, the assessed value for Sedgwick County was $7.546 billion, and that's an increase of 1.8% total. So I'm not sure why that is, but I see Lindsay's coming down.
So maybe I need to do a little more research, and I can get back with you on that. That might not be correct. I apologize.
Believe it or not, if we used the existing mill levy rate and we simply applied that change in assessed value, we'd only have about $3.1 million more. Go ahead.
So Commissioner Lindsay Poruso, your CFO, the appraiser's office is responsible for real and personal property valuations, but also remember that utilities that are state assessed are also a part of our assessed valuation, and so that would not be included in her report today. So I think that's the reason for the
Thank you for that. Yeah, so the 7.546 is not apples and apples comparison.
I'm sorry.
That's
She is
okay.
correct.
No problem. So we'll get that data. Again, I'm looking forward to finding out. I guess I don't know when we find that out. She'll probably tell us it's going to be a long time, but we need that number at some point soon. Another thing I would point out here, I guess, is that we just had our financial retreat, and as we presented the data, not really with respect to anything that's been presented here. What's our target budget growth year over year? We talked about a 4% increase. Whether that's the right number, that's where we end up or not, I think that's a matter of debate here, but we're looking at a 4%. Last year, the assessed value went up overall for Sedgwick County, went up 8.6% last year, and we grew our budget by 4.29%. If you do the math, that means we gave up 4.30%. In other words, it's just ever so slightly less than half of that total number did we actually capture in terms of budget increase. The other half we forfeited. In fact, you look at for many years we had a resolution that said we target 29.359 mills. Just compared to that alone, the current year's mill levy, right now we're in right now is 27.567. That's a 6.1% reduction in the mill levy rate, and just last 3 years. And so we are doing a good job on that. I saw a headline today that said that these notifications are going to go out. You can see how much your taxes are going to go up, and I just cringe because, as has already been stated, that's not how that works. Well, there is one exception to that. The state does apply 20 mil for school funding, and that is an actual calculation, 20 mills times the assessed value. So to the extent that your property value went up 10%, you'll pay a 10% increase to the 20 mil school levy. That's by the state statute, not something we have control over here. But I think every other governing body that deals with property taxes, we will pass a budget based on what we need. So I'm actually encouraging us to basically, people don't like me when I say this, but really the mill levy rate is really not that important. And actually the assessed value for the jurisdiction is really not that important. On an individual basis, we want to look at that because you'll see how do you compare to everybody else. Are you a victim of a system that's basically unfair to you? I think that's a very good discussion to have. But the reality from the governing body's perspective, the assessed value is a number that we use to calculate, a mill levy rate. What we're really passing is a budget. We need so many dollars to run government. And so the mill levy rate is not that important really, and really the total assessed value is not that important really. Those are just two factors in the formula, how we calculate tax dollars. The dollars is what we pass on our budget. And so we don't pass a mill levy rate. We calculate that. It is what it is. One other thing I would say is we talked a little bit about a hearing officer panel. I don't know when we're going to have a deeper discussion, but since appeals are about to happen, I feel like we're kind of behind getting that started. I would like to see a hearing officer panel as soon as possible. What that does is it inserts, if you will, another stop between the informal appeal and what happens at BOTA. And Board of Tax Appeals is a formal appeal at Topeka level. It gives you an option between those 2 points, which is dynamic. It's based on local leaders that are appointed to these positions that are have expertise in property valuation. And we make your formal appeal here at Sedgwick County. Then they have the binding authority on a panel of 3. To make a binding change to the property value. To me, that's a much better, more dynamic process, so people don't actually have to go to BOTA to have an appeal. One other thing you may want to talk about, the previous appraiser, I think, was targeting kind of the low end of the band that he's allowed to target. But I think the hope was, the intent was he was hoping there would be a reduction in appeals, but the reality is that didn't seem to happen that way. We had just as many appeals. What we did see, though, is less wiggle room for making adjustments. Can you please talk about that a little bit?
Yes. My predecessor was extremely conservative and did make a choice, as you said, because they thought that they were making a good decision to make sure that we didn't have a large amount of residential appeals. Unfortunately, last year we had one of our larger counts of residential appeals that we've had for some time. And yes, when the property owners came in last year for residential appeals for the informal level, it was very difficult for us to do anything because the lowest value was already selected. The only thing that a property owner had the opportunity to was to inform us if there was something going on with their property in reference to condition that we did not know about, so that we could take that into account, because sometimes we don't know what's going on, especially on the interior of the homes. There may be some issues. With us not choosing the lowest value, there is some room for adjustment depending on what is brought forth during the appeal. Whether or not we would be able to make the adjustment is on a case-to-case basis depending on what's coming in. But you're right, the last couple years we did not have any room to make any kind of adjustment on any residential properties unless there was a conditional issue that we were not aware of.
So let me rephrase this, and I hate to put you on the hot seat here, but your philosophy of the office is slightly different than the predecessor in that I think you're probably following more of a normal appraisal approach to this, and that would be what we do in other counties, I assume, is rather than picking kind of the very end of the edge of the window, you're probably picking something not at the very end. So you're maybe moving up just a little tiny bit so that there's, I guess, you're not just driven to pick that bottom of the window that you probably would be allowed to pick. You're kind of picking maybe something slightly above that or whatever. So and that's maybe not fair to you to bring that up, but I just think it's this 10.2% or what the number was exactly, the total, the 9 point.
9.3 was the median for all.
That might have some impact from that slight change in procedure and policy of your office.
Right. And you're right. I mean, instead of picking the lowest value, we picked the most correct value as being a fair market value.
Right.
So if there were sales going on that were comparable to the subject property, then we would have chose a sales comparable approach, because the sales are what is the main driver for the market, where before we would have picked whatever the lowest value was. Now, another main method that was sales comparable was one of our main methods in residential this year, but another one would have been cost, which is replacement cost less depreciation. Some of our areas did have some pretty high sales comparable market value. I will tell you, we did review anything that had a large impact. I don't remember which commissioner said red flag, maybe Commissioner Beatty, put in place so that we could look at those ones that had large impact to see what was going on with them. But in reference to that, we recognize that some of the areas had the market was a lot stronger than what, because of investors mainly coming in and purchasing some properties, that we made a decision, made a decision that instead of going at fair market value, which was a much higher value, that we chose a lower value, which was cost. So did I answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah. The last thing I was just going to say is this, that is that more of a comment. Again, the appraisal process is not so much used to increase taxes. I think that's the misunderstanding by most people. but it's used to divide the tax burden in a fair fashion. By having accurate appraisals, by having a uniform and equal process to determine property values, it allows the treasurer and the county clerk to, if you will, an apportionment of the tax burden for each governing body is assigned to each property owner based on a relevant assessed value. And I don't know how I can say that any clearer and better. That was pretty well said. At the end of the day, the assessed value is not there to raise tax dollars, but it's there to create a fairness on how the tax burden is apportioned to each property taxpayer. So that to me is critically important to say it that way, and I want to keep saying that way. I think it's really, really important. I know people are going to be upset when they see these numbers, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change what we would pass in our budget. If we're going to do 4%, it's still 4%. Even if the assessed value growth was 20% or 2%, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Our budget's 4%.
Right.
So again, you divide that larger, the 4% larger budget by all the property owners based on their relevant assessment rate. That's what that's for. It's not designed to create tax dollars. So I hope that makes sense, and I appreciate your expertise. I appreciate you presenting today. It's been good to have you here today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I will say that you hit on something, Commissioner Howell, that a choice was made this year to make sure that we consistently looked at the properties, that we were not arbitrarily picking the lowest valuation method, so that in a neighborhood, if there were a lot of sales in that neighborhood or whatever, you would typically see the same type of valuation method, or if there weren't a lot of sales in the area, you would see the same typical valuation method, so that we had a desire to make our valuations more consistent across the board, if that makes any sense.
Deanna, thank you very much. Some of the conversations we've had, I know myself, I think I've had 77% increase in the last 5 years. I assume another double-digit increase. And if you look at the data in the last 5 years since COVID, people aren't giving up their 3% mortgages. You know this, and it's causing the sales volume to be lower and lower, which is driving up demand. We talk about we're hitting the mark 90%, but as you've shared with me, that's data that you don't have, because most people are, as far as paying prepaids and closing costs, they're probably paying $5,000 for each one of these transactions that you don't have the data, so you're not able to back that out. I know 70% of appeals last year was zero change. I think I did 31, and I had zero change on my appeals. So I just want to make sure the public understands that we're going to take these appeals very serious. And I'd actually like to, Justin, it was Tom Henry, he's worked on this taxpayer advocate a little bit for us, or has some information for us.
Well, and just to clarify, Chairman, Justin Wagner, County Councilor, you're referring to like the appeal panel that exists under Kansas law now. Is that what you're talking about? The appeal
I'm
panel,
talking about our local appeals.
Oh, okay. Well, and I just
but I did
clarify,
want to the taxpayer advocate.
Yeah,
just looking at every avenue that a taxpayer can look at whenever they want to.
In terms of taxpayer advocate, I'm not aware of anything there. I mean, I think that the appraiser's office will work with people who file appeals to communicate with them. That's something I think Deanna could address. But I think what Tom could address would be either a hearing panel or hearing officer option that exists under Kansas law now.
Sure.
Thanks. You guys are going to not pass this.
So speaking, Thomas Henry, Assistant County Councilor, speaking specifically to the taxpayer advocate, I know there's some efforts at the state to essentially build into some open positions at the Kansas Department of Revenue somebody that can be a reference for taxpayers going through that process in order to help them know kind of procedurally how to go about that. And then did you want me to speak more on the panel and how that all would work?
If you would a little bit.
Okay. So it can either be a panel or an individual. It is something that the Board of County Commissioners appoints. There are some requirements from the PVD as to what that person would have to, this is some courses and things that they would have to go through before they could sit on the panel and hear cases. There's Directive 17- I believe it's 049. My computer went to sleep on me, but that details they have to take IAAO courses 101 and 102, which 101 goes over the cost approach and sales comparison approach. 102 goes over the income approach. Both are week-long classes that have a test at the end of it that would, show comprehension for that individual. And then on top of that, there would be a training course put together by PVD, which I would imagine would lean heavily on some of the courses that they have that are specific to Kansas property tax laws, and how those kind of affect what is the typical appraisal process. And then the cost of that panel would be borne, as statute stands now, by the county. You would have the ability to set the salaries for those individuals on the panel, or the individual if you choose not to do a panel. And then there would be the option as well, if you want to consider cost-saving mechanisms, to partner with other counties in order to do a panel that serves not just Sedgwick County, but other counties that would be part of that as well. So there's some options there, but it would be another step in the process for anyone going through and appealing their property value. So before they could even get to BOTA after the informal appeals, this would just be another step that would interject in between those two steps in the process. So,
Okay. Any questions at all? Okay. Thank you. And one thing I just wanted to address again, as you know, the numbers of sales have dwindled down, and it's market-ready homes, and your average home, I would say, is not market-ready, because as a real estate broker, one of the first things we do is we go through there and give them a list of improvements that they've got to make. And I know, like this year, there's going to be a lot of houses that were hit with hail that probably didn't get the roofs replaced. How do you look at something like that? I mean, will you take that into consideration, or will you say, no, we expect that every house is going to have an operatable roof? I'm just trying to understand the interpretation between how your office views property and how the market views property, and how they're going to adjust to the purchase price of that.
So you're correct in reference to most properties are probably market ready, so they go and do things to make it that way, where not all properties are like that. If there's some excessive issues with the properties, we want to know that, because I think I stated earlier, we definitely do not get inside of the properties most often. If we do, it's very sparingly, or the property owner has asked us to come in, especially on the existing homes. We do get in sometimes during new construction, so we know what that looks like. But if there is some issues going on with their property, we would like to know about that. Now, I do know I was one of those people that had hail damage on my roof, and I do know that it was very difficult. That one of the companies I called said they couldn't get to me until this next spring, but I was able to find another contractor sooner. But we do expect the property owners to have some level of maintenance, and they're going to be a little bit of deferred maintenance depending on how old the property is. But as far as a roof or siding, we would expect them to follow through and get those repairs done or updates done. But if for some reason they cannot afford to get it done, whatever that reason is, and it gets to a point where it becomes excessive and it's starting to affect the structure, we would definitely want to know that, because we would want to make concessions to the value and make sure that we have the condition in the right level.
I know that happens a lot, where someone gets hail damage and realistically it's cosmetic. The roof's not going to leak. They take the check and cash it, and they don't replace the roof until they go to sell it again. So I just know that's a factor. But
And that is a problem because if they don't repair the roof when that hail damage happens, and then it may be out of their pocket later on when they're trying to put that new roof on to sell, because they were like, I'm not going to do that, and then they didn't use their insurance they would have had on their property to make sure and maintain their property, then it does become a problem when they go to sell it and they don't have the funds to be able to put that roof on.
I just know whenever you look at the scatter chart, the line follows pretty good at your 90%, but your outliers are way out there. So hopefully we're doing everything we can to work with those outliers.
We are certainly working on that, Commissioner.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. You did a great job. I appreciate it.
I will want to ask that you make sure that you receive the report I gave you and file this report. So I do want to add that to that.
Yep, absolutely. It's a motion I was getting ready to make.
All right.
So I'd like to make a motion to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner.
Aye.
Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Chairman Bluebow.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Madam Clerk, next item.
Consent agenda.
Chairman and Commission Tom Stolz, County Manager's Office, recommend approval of consent items C through I this morning.
Okay. Items C through I. Any questions? If not, I'd like to make a motion to approve items C through I.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Aye. Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Chairman Bluebow.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Next item.
Legislative issues.
Morning, Tanya.
Morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Tanya Cole, Assistant County Manager. Okay, so for legislative updates today, turnaround day is Thursday, and so again, that's just the final day for non-exempt bills to be passed by their original chamber, but it is a milestone date in the legislative session. So members have been on the floor all day Tuesday and Wednesday, and then I understand that they are going to try to finish today, and so they will head home tomorrow for a short break until Monday. We did hear Monday that the dangerous animal bill passed out of committee, and did hear from Jason yesterday that the Senate adjourned right before they got to the public bid bill, Senate Bill 436, so hoping that that makes it on the floor today for a vote. House Bill 2329, of course, Commissioner Howell's not here, but did want to mention that he contacted us yesterday and said that there was a minor amendment to that bill, and he thought that it would go to conference committee. And so again, that bill is our juvenile corrections bill that deals with out-of-home placement and illegal firearms possessed by juveniles. We did hear from Watkins yesterday that they are still trying to work on the appraiser qualification bill and hopes to get that in session. And so we are hoping to see that come into fruition after the short break. We did talk again at length on House Bill 2745. That is the House tax bill. So understand that there was an amendment on Monday, and that amendment included for the election option, that was replaced by a protest petition process for contesting the property tax revenue growth over the artificial caps. So that would require petition signatures from 10% of those voting in the previous presidential election to prevent property tax revenue growth from exceeding 3%. And then I did mention last week that they did make those exemption provisions for the bond exception. We'll mention the bills that are related to local government continue to be routed to commerce committees. So I'll just mention House Bill 2588, that's creating statewide licensure for electricians. That went to a commerce committee. House Bill 2737, that would change how tax increment financing for municipal economic development projects works. That went to a commerce committee. I'll just mention that I sent that to Brent Shelton, and he thought that bill looked okay. And then House Bill 2739, this bill bans local governments from mandating sprinklers in dwellings of 4 housing units or fewer. So just thought that bill was a little bit interesting. A couple of bills that were introduced that I want to mention. House Bill 2769. So this requires members of governing bodies of subordinate service taxing areas to be residents of such taxing areas. So I mentioned that to our lobbyist, and he was going to get the chair of with the chair of this committee to understand more on this bill. So just as you might understand how that might affect our fire district. And then House Bill 2771, I'm going to read off this bill and just, again, just mentioning for your interest. Establishing requirements for the county sheriff operating a jail for the enforcement of United States immigration and custom enforcement detainers, requiring municipal insurance pools to provide coverage for law enforcement that enforces federal laws, requiring the state to pay certain judgments in a federal court action, requiring the Attorney General to provide representation in certain civil actions, and authorizing county sheriffs to enter into certain interlocal cooperation agreements without the approval of the Board of County Commissioners. And Sheriff Easter is well aware of this bill as well. So that's all I might mention today. There was a bill that the Register of Deed mentioned on Friday, and she was up there on Monday to testify on that bill. That's House Bill 2696. That has to do with notarizing public process on real estate documents, and she did mention that 3D biometric anti-fraud system. So that's all I have to mention. I'm happy to stand for any questions that you might have.
Okay, Commissioner Beatty? Yeah, Tanya, thanks for all the work. We're kind of heading towards that. Oh, you got something else you wanna add?
I cringed because there was one thing I had on here that I forgot to mention, but I bet you might be mentioning
I bet I'll let you go first. Go ahead.
Okay, you bet. That's Senate Bill 404. That's our treasurer's bill. We just found out today that that is likely not to make it on the Senate floor as they're looking for other resolutions.
Yeah, this is the treasurer's bill. As most people in Sedgwick County and all 105 counties know, what took place at local tag offices over the course of the last year was wholly inappropriate, for lack of a better term. And it was caused by multiple factors. The biggest factor was that state statute reads that every 5 years, years that end in 0 or 5, those with a personalized license plate have to come and do an in-person renewal. So traffic at the Sedgwick County Tag Office in 2025 surged almost 600% and drew all of these long lines and all the Facebook posts and all the media attention primarily because of the significant challenge that we had with personalized license plates. That was in this bill. Senate Bill 404. The other part of the bill was that trying to modernize the fee structure. As most people know, if you go do a $30 $30 title fee, $27.30 goes to the state, and we get to keep 70 cents at the county. And what's happened is these fees haven't changed in 25 plus years, and local county commissions are having to use local property tax dollars to subsidize a state function and state tag offices. And we think that's wholly inappropriate. That seems to be a theme in this deal, that we're using local property tax dollars to subsidize a state function. So we asked in this bill, very simply, was could you allow local counties the autonomy and local treasurers autonomy to make the fee structure what it needs to be to pay the bills. And we've asked them, said, put a cap on it. Right now it's $5, put $15. In Sedgwick County, we may just need a $2 increase, $7, $8. That way we're not having to subsidize upwards of $1 million a year to subsidize the local tag office and tag office functions. So that was a really simple bill. I testified. Everyone in the committee, the legislature, felt like this was a really reasonable thing and to give autonomy on the local level. All 105 counties in the state of Kansas came together and said, we need your help. So we're not using local property tax dollars for these functions because you guys care deeply about local property taxes, as do we. And then we heard back this morning that it's not going to get above the line. And the reason is that they don't want increases on fees for constituents because, quote unquote, local governments, local counties are using property tax dollars already. They already receive property tax dollars. This is a really important, I'm sorry I'm going long, Chairman, but I'm a little frustrated about this today. we receive property tax revenue on people's assets and their property. That goes to the general fund so that we can pay for things like the sheriff and the jail and EMS and 911 and on and on and on and on that we do here at Sedgwick County government. Those are property tax dollars. What we're asking them to help us with is their function of title and tag work, the processes of pursuing and administrating titles and tags. That is not a county function. That is a state function. But we're having to use these local property tax dollars to supplement the tag fund in order to do this function. And all we're saying is just give us autonomy to make the fee where it needs to be so we don't have to use local property tax dollars to do the work that you make us do at the state statute level. And for some reason, there's confusion that we should be using local property tax dollars, which we are, which they're complaining about, to subsidize the tag office. So to say that I'm frustrated is probably an understatement. It's very frustrating because we're hearing from them pressure about using local property tax dollars, yet when we bring really reasonable solutions so we don't have to use local property tax dollars for the services that are state services, we get told that, well, don't raise fees on people. So which is it? Raise property taxes to do the functions or raise fees to do the functions? Because people are demanding better service at the tag office. It is not appropriate to let people go to the tag office and get in line at 5 a.m. and take off a day of work to wait in line. That's not appropriate. That's terrible service. And if this was a private business, we would be out of business. But it's not. It's government. And they're compelled to use the service. And there's no urgency to fix it on behalf of the taxpayer. And that's what frustrates me, is because taxpayers and citizens have piss poor service because the state doesn't want to help us do this job better. And that frustrates me. So this is a really logical bill. It makes a lot of sense. We said put a 2-year sunset on this thing. That way you can really, really modernize and reform, which we are all asking for. That way you can fix the problem now. And for some reason, it's just, I don't know, it must be an election year up there. I don't know what it is. But it's just sensible. This frustrates me as a private business person where sensible reforms can get put into place that can make people's lives so much easier. And politics gets in the way. And that frustrates the hell out of me. So that's all we got. I guess we'll take another swing at it next year or the next time. Or maybe what we can do is all these bad reviews that come in about tag office experience, maybe we'll just shuffle them up to the state. Or maybe we can keep reminding people it's the state, this is a state service. Or maybe we don't fund it at all. Maybe Commissioner Howe's approach was actually the right approach. Maybe we don't fund the tag office at all with local property tax dollars and see what the service becomes there. But you know why we won't do that? Because we're responsible adults that know how to govern. And there's people sitting in the tag office that work for us right now and people that are still compelled to use the service that demand some sort of maturity in governing and policy making. So we won't do that, and we'll just try to get common sense reforms done so that the people of Sedgwick County can have a decent experience at the tag office. God bless those people that work there that have to endure this, because they're enduring something that we can't get the state to fix. I haven't even mentioned the mover system, the state software system that all 105 counties are required to use that fails 2 to 3 times a week, causing more delays. We've asked them, can you fix that? Can you let us get our own server to do these things? No, they're intent with their typewriters to continue archaic systems instead of improving the lives of people in Sedgwick County and the state of Kansas. It is archaic, it's embarrassing, and it's politics, and it has to end. And I'm so frustrated by it because this was a sensible bill. It's a sensible bill that doesn't get above the line because of politics. So it's frustrating. So goes life sometimes in working with the legislature, I guess. So these are good people, and they're well intended. But damn it, man, this made a lot of sense, and it's frustrating. It's not going to get across the finish line.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend.
Well,
Mr. Weiser.
Well said.
My wife's going to be texting me about my language.
Well said. You could just add to it that if you don't own a car, but you own a property, you're still contributing to this.
Yeah.
And if you're a family of 5 cars in a house and your next door neighbor is 1 car, it's still the same property tax impact, even though you may have 5 cars and she only has 1, or he or she
paying for it.
So anyway, it's what you said was really good. I'm just adding some more bullets for your speech. So thank you.
Yes. Tanya, anything else?
That's it. Thank you,
Okay.
Commissioners.
All right. Commissioners, I want to see where we want to go next. I know we have a hard stop here coming up in a few minutes. You guys want to recess and come back at 1:45, or how does that work with everybody's schedule?
Honestly, I think the chamber luncheon starts at noon, correct? If we can push through, because I think we'd be in good shape if we can push through.
Sure. Okay.
Chairman, if I could, I was going to mention, well, I'll mention it maybe when you get to the item. I know you got a couple more before, but
okay.
That's okay.
Okay, sure. Madam Clerk, next item.
Committee reports.
We have any committee reports? Okay, next item.
Other.
Other. We don't have anything on other. Next item.
Executive session.
Executive session. Justin?
Yes, and Chairman, I know Commissioner Wise customarily as the pro tem would make the motion. Before you do that, I did want to query, I know Commissioner Beatty was talking about pushing through. The timeline that's anticipated on the motion is 45 minutes. I think that if there's a will to do it for slightly less time than that, that could be an option. But I didn't know if there's if it were 45-minute executive session motion, that would clearly put you past noon. So I just thought I'd mention that in case the motion maker would want to make any.
Chairman, this is your call. I have the City of Mays coming here at 2 o'clock that will be waiting on me. So if we recess and start at 1:40 again, it'd be disrespectful to people that have something on my calendar.
Okay.
But that's just my calendar.
Could we cut it down to 30 minutes?
Can we do it in 30 minutes?
Yeah, if we can do it in 30.
I think we could do 30 minutes.
Okay.
All right. I am requesting an executive session of the Board of County Commissioners to be held during the regular meeting of the board on February 18th, 2026, which involves one justification as described by KSA 75-4319B2. The motion should read, verbatim as follows. Did I read a little extra. I'm just excited. I move that the Board of County Commissioners recess into executive session for 30 minutes until noon. Is that all right? It's a little bit longer. Are we going upstairs? Yes. We are. Okay.
We are going upstairs, and you'll have to reconvene after the motion, just so you may want to keep that in mind.
Okay, let's do 11:55. Run. For consultation with legal counsel for the county regarding matters deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship in order to discuss consultation with legal counsel regarding a lawsuit involving Sedgwick County, and that the Board of County Commissioners returns to this room from executive session at 11:55.
Okay. Second. Motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Meitzner. Aye. Commissioner Beatty.
Aye.
Commissioner Howell. Commissioner Wise.
Aye.
Chairman Blubow.
Aye. We'll be back down here at 11:55. All right, we're back from executive session. There's no binding action taken. Meeting adjourned.